In the United States tonight, the White House is doubling down on its war messaging. Even as lawmakers split over the legal case, Americans rush to leave the region, and market prices a longer, more expensive conflict. Here are the key developments. US President Donald Trump says the military operation against Iran is going very well. Speaking at the White House alongside German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, Trump claimed Iran's Navy, Air Force, and air defenses systems have been knocked out. He said the campaign is already ahead of schedule, though he gave no clear timeline for when it might end.
They had a lot of them. They've shot a lot of them, and we're knocking out a lot. I guess the worst case would be we do this, and then somebody takes over who's as bad as the previous person, right? That could happen.
Trump also offered a new explanation for why the war began, saying he ordered the strikes because he had a feeling Iran would attack first as nuclear negotiations stalled. At one point, he suggested he may have even forced Israel's hand in launching the military operation.
Based on the way the negotiation was going, I think they were going to attack first, and I didn't want that to happen. So if anything, I might have forced Israel's hand.
Earlier, Secretary of State Marco Rubio had given a different account, saying Washington acted because it believed Israeli strikes would trigger Iranian retaliation against US forces.
If we stood and waited for that attack to come first before we hit them, we would suffer much higher casualties. And so the president made the very wise decision. We knew that there was going to be an Israeli action. We knew that that would precipitate an attack against American forces. And we knew that if we didn't preemptively go after them before they launched those attacks, we would suffer higher casualties and perhaps even higher those killed. And then we would all be here answering questions about why we knew that and didn't act.
Meanwhile, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has said the campaign is focused on dismantling Iran's offensive capabilities, not pursuing regime change, although he added the leadership had been dealt a severe blow.
This is not a so-called regime change war, but the regime sure did change, and the world is better off for it.
After the meeting with Trump, German Chancellor Merz voiced support for confronting Iran but warned the war is already hurting global economics. He said rising oil and gas prices are damaging economic stability and expressed hope the conflict will end soon. Merz also confirmed that Germany had been assisting the US forces with access to certain bases, though he acknowledged the issue is politically sensitive back home.
As I said, in Germany the last 2 days, we are supporting the United States and Israel to get rid of this terrible terrorist regime. And we are looking forward to a day after, and we have to talk about the strategy. What is following after this regime is away, and we have to strategize on this entire region. And we are having a high interest in common approach and common work and what we can do, and this is important not just for the Americans.
On Capitol Hill, lawmakers emerged sharply divided after a classified briefing on strikes. Republican Senator Lindsey Graham said Iran's leadership faces mounting pressure and warned that more overwhelming firepower could be coming.
This regime is in its death throes. The amount of firepower coming in the next day or two from us is going to be overwhelming, and when you add to the mix the Arab capability, then it's going to be overwhelming. The demise of this regime is at hand, and the goal is to make sure they can never be a threat like they were before.
But Democratic Senator Cory Booker criticized the administration's justification, saying the briefing showed no imminent threat from Iran.
I mean, the point is there was no imminent threat. There clearly was no imminent threat. This was the president on one hand that said to the American people, I completely eviscerated their nuclear capabilities, and now he's saying that they did not.
Another Democratic leader, Chuck Schumer, urged the administration to focus on domestic issues rather than overseas conflicts.
America, the American people do not want an endless war. The administration doesn't seem to know what it's doing. Every hour there's a different rationale as to why we're doing this. And America wants this president to pay attention to the problems at home, not the problems overseas, particularly when no one has any idea of what the real rationale is. It changes every hour.
At the same time, Democratic Senator John Fetterman backed the operation, saying the world was now safer. The divide highlights a growing debate in Washington over the legal basis and strategic objective of the war.
So why can't we all just say the world is safer and it's more just now because of that, what this happens? You don't have to agree on everything.
Secretary of State Rubio says the U.S. government has been coordinating evacuation efforts across the Middle East. Around 9,000 Americans have already left the region since the conflict began.
Implementing our plans to help Americans in the Middle East be able to depart. As of a few minutes ago before I left, 9,000 Americans have been able to leave the region since the start of this war. We have about 1,500 Americans that are requesting assistance with departure. We have identified and continue to identify charter flights, military flight options, and expanded commercial flight options, meaning working with the airlines to send bigger airplanes with more seats, and the combination of those three things.
With 1,500 to 1,600 more requesting assistance.
As I told you right now, we have about a little over 1,500, maybe closer to 1,600 Americans requesting assistance, and we know that we're going to be able to help them.
Washington has been arranging charter flights, military transport, and commercial options to help citizens depart as airspace disruptions complicate travel. Several diplomatic posts had already reduced staff ahead of the escalation, including missions in Beirut, Baghdad, and Erbil. Meanwhile, Iran continues to retaliate against the US in the Gulf. Authorities in Dubai confirmed a drone strike near the US consulate, which caused a small fire in a parking area. Emergency teams quickly contained the blaze with no injuries were reported. The incident came just a day after 2 drones hit the US Embassy in Saudi Arabia, causing minor damage, and as the US Embassy in Kuwait closed until further notice due to regional tensions. The conflict is already rippling through global markets. US stocks fell as investors worried about how long the war could last and what higher oil prices could mean for inflation. The S&P 500 dropped 0.94%, while Nasdaq fell 1.02% and the Dow Jones declined 0.83%. However, markets recovered somewhat from the steeper losses earlier in the day, suggesting investors are still weighing whether the conflict will remain contained. So the picture in Washington tonight is one of military confidence abroad and political debate at home. The White House insists the campaign is succeeding, but questions remain about the war's justification, timeline, and economic impact. And with the oil price rising and evacuations accelerating, the stakes are growing both in the Middle East and in Washington.